Another step. Yo, should we say so? Yo, say so. So no, Maryland, I'm team. Should we see LA? That will you still to be fast. We go to that road forever. So you still have to stop. You know, to the permit. So lots of we back. Let me go to my mom. We never you over. You look at the shooter. Right? You put me to the car. Robbie, not like gosh. Track it up. So we do your last show. Can't get turn around. I also tell my fellows now. Hey, love Robin. I go. The boy cover left. Came out of the Savila. Yo, should say so. Yo, say so. No, Maryland, I'm team. So say you just in fact we never have so you just have something can about to tell you about lots of people that we to from me never open yellow because of issues or me to you come to tell over about I like gosh practically down to create a big structure issue if I can't imagine I also have a hello to never I love Robin I like my left came out in the mouth of it I love the smart law yo should we just you say should you so on Maryland I don't know about team to say like you maybe have to chapter we never have so just a lot of stuff those are we talk about me so remember we never over yellow who said to me so sorry I'm you come to fellow from me not I love like I tried to grab made it that video strong which is matches and grad Catherine about say on September on a hello tonight in left Robin I go like about that came out email so we tell us the smart of a call one more step yo she was says you say so on Maryland I'm team to see LA stuff over you who says my back you know push me down over us there so you also thought that those are me people that make it over mom we down for both yellow we get them shoot for you go to over maybe not I love it back we have to be doing this after I can't and I'm saying you know down below tonight you love Robin I like travel off the email I'll be down off the for a couple of back okay again put it down and the ring
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're beginning the service. Mrs. Rochelle R Schultz. Once again, Rabbi Ali and Bensi Lazovsky will be officiating.
Eishchayil miyimtza v'rachok mipini mifra batach v'lei ba'ala v'shalo lo yachzar k'mlasu tov l'ara koy mechaya dorsher tzemer u'fushtim v'tabes chevetz kafeha Haisa kani al socher mimircha kavilachma v'taka v'olayla v'titin teref levesach v'chok l'naroseha Zamamatz edevati kachel mirpicha pen atakarem chagar bios masna v'tamit zeroseha Tama kitov sachar leichbe b'layla nera yadel shilcha v'kishar v'chapeh tamchufalech Kappa parsala ani v'yadel shilcha liyavon l'sir melevesa mishala kicha beisach levush shanim. Marvadi masas Allah sheish v'ergaman levusha nareba sharim ba'ala b'shifto im zikei aretz. Sadi nasasa v'tim kar v'chagor nasna lakani ozor dar levusha v'tisla kiyom acharon. Pia pascha b'chachma v'sar schesed al lishonat sofia lichos beisa v'lechem atzul so sochel. Kama v'neh v'yashura ba'ala v'yahalullah Rabos Benosa Suchel Viad Alisa Kulana. Sheker Achin Behevel Yofi Isha Yerasanai he Tisalal Tnu Lachmi Priyada Vihalua Bashar Maseha. A woman of valor who can find found beyond pearls is her worth. Her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, and he shall lack for nothing. She spreads out her palm to the poor and extends her hands for the destitute. Her mouth is strength and splendor are her raiment. She cheerfully awaits the last day. Her mouth is open with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She oversees the ways of her household and partakes not of the bread of laziness. Her children arise and praise her husband, and he lauds her. Many daughters have accomplished well, but you surpass them all. Grace is false, and beauty is vain, but a woman in awe of God, she shall be praised. Give her the fruits of her own hand, and let her deeds praise her in the gathering places. Asher Aisha Sher Lo Alach B'Tzasu Sharim B'Derech HaTa'im Lo Amar V'Mashav Leitzim Lo Yashav Ki Im B'Soras Adonai Cheftzov Sorso Yagei Yom HaValayla V'Yaka Eish Hasul HaPagemayim Asher Priyo Yitain B'Ito B'Alei Lo Yibal V'Chol Asher Yaseh Yatzliach L'chein Harshaim Im Kamot Kasher Tidfen Urach HaKein Lo Yakum Harshaim B'Mishpat V'Chata'im B'Adas Tzadikim Ki Yodei Adonai Derech Tzadikim V'Derech Harshaim Toved. We are here today to pay tribute to Rachel Rivka, Bas Eliodov, HaKohen, and Kayla Bracha, and first we'll call on Shlomo Atlas for Divrei Hesped.
I don't think anybody ever imagined that our mother, Grandma Ro, would end up with a levaya like this. She was always so put together, always so proper. Everything had to be the right way. Very majestic, royal person. We can't even have a proper shiva. They say about Klal Yisrael, we're Rachmanim by Shanim and Gom Chesed. What a better way to describe her. She cared about everyone, all of us. She was never judgmental. She accepted all of us the way we were. There was no such thing as an in-law. We were all her children. How many people... She was called Auntie Ro. She was so good to everyone. Her whole life was about giving. All of us. Without having to be asked, without any asking for anything in return. She always gave. As a daughter, her kibbut avim was exemplary. Even after Misa, she came here very frequently to visit her parents. It was part of her kibbut avim. As a big sister, she's always caring about her little sister and very close with her. As a wife, her entire married life was about taking care of Pop-Up. Anything that he needed, she was his Ezer Kenegdo. And especially in his last years, she single-handedly was his caregiver, his nurse, his doctor, his loving wife. As a mother, is it strange to say that she loved her children? She loved them more than anything in the world. She cared for them, whatever they needed, plus. Her whole life revolved around them. There was nothing that she wouldn't do for them. As a grandmother, always helping us, always entertaining the children, always playing with them. Her house was always open. We all remember Sunday mornings at Grandma Ro's house. That's what we did. She babysat when we needed her. It didn't matter what time of the day or night. If somebody was in labor, it didn't matter what time of the day or night, she was there to come. We remember when we had 3 children that had chicken pox when Razy was born, and she took care of our children. As a great-grandmother, this was the love of her life also. Her door was always open for the visits, for the phone calls. She never forgot birthdays or anniversaries, special occasions. Her whole life. Entertaining. How many parties we had at her house, It was never a bother to set it up, to cook. Always having Shabbos guests. And when we needed meals, she always cooked for us. She'd even do our laundry. How we're going to miss her. What we can learn from her. The chesed that she had in her heart is something that was unbelievable. It's cold, I can't say more, I'm sorry. I asked her Mechila, as a son-in-law, I never gave her enough kavod. I never gave her the kavod that she gave to me. Ask her for Mechila, she should be a Melis Yosef for all of us.
Thank you, Shlomo. We now call on grandson Shimmy.
Very difficult to try to encapsulate who Grandma was and what she meant to us. My father just did a very good job. If I could just add on one point. I heard an unbelievable vart yesterday, and I looked it up to make sure that it was accurate. We find that Klal Yisrael, when they were leaving Mitzrayim, they asked the Mitzrayim for their klei kesef and klei zav and smolos. They asked them for all their valuables. Hashem had requested on the way out that they should ask, and they did. They asked if they could borrow it. And it's very puzzling what happened, because if you think about it for a minute, the Mitzrayim hated the Yidden with a passion. Originally, it was over 200 years. Originally, the Yidden were the shepherds. They dealt with the Egyptian gods. They didn't give them a proper respect. We find originally when the Egyptians went to enslave the Yidden, one of their excuses was that they didn't trust them, that they might go ahead and rebel against them. And now they just went through 10 makas that were caused by the Yidden. They hated them with a passion. So the Yidden come and knock on their doors and ask them to borrow something, to borrow their valuables. And not only did they not go ahead and give it to them, the pasuk says, "Vayinatzlu es Mitzrayim," and Rashi says, it says they gave them extra. The Yidden came and said, "Could we have your golden vessel?" And they said, "Wait, take two." And Rashi says, "Vayinatzlu," is that they wiped them out. They completely wiped them out. How can we understand how the Mitzrayim, who hated the Yidden with such a passion, went ahead and just gave everything away to them? So the Sefer Yechiruven brings down from the Stipler that really the miracle wasn't that they went ahead and gave it to them, because the pasuk says, Hashem nasan eschein ha'am b'nei Mitzrayim. Hashem was the one. He gave chen. He had the Mitzrayim find favor in that the Yidden in the eyes of Mitzrayim, they found favor in them, and because they did that, so therefore it makes total sense. A person who has chen, a person who is pleasant, if they get away, they're able, whatever they want, they'll get. We find Esther Amalka also, right? That Achashverosh found chen, and she was able to do things. She was extremely disrespectful to the king, and she got away with it anyways. So it's Hashem who goes ahead and gives chen. If Hashem gives chen, the person has chen. If Hashem doesn't, it's all up to Rabbeinu Shalom. Once a person has a chen, obviously they have to use it properly, but it's all up to Rabbeinu Shalom. So
When I think of Grandma, she was such a pleasant person. I thought of this line last night and I wrote it down. That she always had a smile on her face, a twinkle in her eye, and her heart was filled with pride from all of our accomplishments. A friend of mine last night told me he used to always see her by all of the school functions. She was by ours, by our children's. There's no such thing as Grandma not being there. In the front row. And not only that, but she lived her life making other people pleasant and trying to point out and having what to do with other pleasant people. And in fact, she had no idea at the time, but I spent the Shabbos by her house right after we had finished the agreement or the shidduch, the Sarah and I were going to go out. And she knew Sarah from Hard Crown, and Sarah had given her a ride home. She said, I know this wonderful girl for you. She's perfect. She's nice. She's pleasant. That was Grandma. I just have to mention two things. First of all, that one person, really the apple of her eye, she always spoke about and always had so many good things to say about was Uncle Harvey, who spent his entire life being mechaved his parents, and Grandma was very much makar, and she was always his biggest advocate, and always was any opportunity to bring up his name and to bring up anything about him, she always mentioned it. And also, we owe Auntie Judy a tremendous debt of gratitude and karsatayv, not only for taking care of Grandma all these years and being there, but also as it became more difficult to communicate with Grandma, to get together with her, and especially this past Kufa that weren't able to visit. It was limited mostly to talking on the phone, and Auntie Judy was always there to help us, give us ideas, to let us know different things going on, and most of all, to make sure that whatever stories and things we were telling Grandma, that everything was given over accurately. And tremendous gratitude for that. Grandma should be for all of us, and as Hashem, Mashiach should come very soon.
We now will ask Yossi Schultz, another grandson, to speak.
You write things and then you reread them and you're not sure. I don't know. Is try to think of things in the context of what's going on in the world, what time of the year. And this weather is a week before the Rosh Hashanah of Ilanos. And we have this tragedy. When you call or visit Grandma Rowe, check in. things are going, work, learning, kids, life. Even you hear in her voice, she's so happy, so excited. It's the new chumash or professional, social accomplishment or degree, or the news of an upcoming grandchild or great-grandchild, not grandchild, great-grandchild. She's just so excited. She just willed it to be that it should be all the simcha she to have. And the na'achas from us, her family, from friends like family, from community and like family. Just thinking when Hashem needed that kick, Kaviyachol to just, and the goal is, Rachli Meinu was the one who stepped up. Her power of tefillah. For protection and her sustenance, success, redemption. And our grandma, our Rachel, well, wield that same weapon and did every Friday night. Every time she picked up a pill, and just like her mother taught her. And her tefillos, planting and cultivating, that was our success and our accomplishments. And we are her handiwork. We are the seeds that she planted. She worked very hard to blossom our lives, Torah-centric, from Jews to live with their cheretz and being a Schultz, to live with honesty, truth, compassion, joy, and just an acceptable amount of Azaz Panim once in a while. So much is unsaid. Memories and regrets. We love her not visiting or calling often enough. Not being able to be called Dolly one more time. Her iron will to be matched and exceeded in Shemayim, beseeching Hashem alongside her mother, Rachli Meinu, to have the singularity of Hashem in this world and the completion of Beis HaMikdash b'mheir b'yameinu v'nishmas v'tzor v'tzor chaim.
Thank you, Yossi. At this time, we call upon a grandson, Mati Schultz, to speak.
I don't know if I can speak as eloquently as some of the people had, but a few thoughts. Grandma was a nexus for the family. I mean, as Uncle Shlomo mentioned, the parties that we used to have brought people together. We never got together like that, except for those parties. They were an essential part of this family staying together and growing. And she was our link to the past. The past that we see around us, down and up, people in front of us. I mean, she grew up at a time that we didn't have the infrastructure that we have now, the schools and the restaurants and everything that makes being a religious Jew so easy. But she persevered when many people didn't, and I think that got in our DNA. And she was an example of taking care of family. I mean, I don't have to go into examples, we all know that, but also from a community standpoint. You know, she was a teacher. She was a camp director. She took care of many people. I remember her proudly talking a few years ago about a book that one of her students had written. She was so proud of that, and that was she had such a impact on the wider community, and she will be missed. We love you, Grandma.
Thank you, Mati. My father's unable to speak, so he wrote out something. He could speak very little. Again, we're going to skip the biographical information just because it's so cold. We could do that on a Zoom or something when it's warmer. So this is again for my father. I've known Auntie Ro and Uncle Irving since 1969 when I started to play in the ICJA orchestra with Eileen. Through the years, I became close with all of their children. Each one is a magnificent reflection of the many attributes of their parents. Their home was always one filled with joy, not hololess, but true joy. And not just because of the beautiful music that was always heard from the piano, Uncle Irving singing, or the Divrei Torah, but because the home was filled with Kedusha, and one could sense the Shekhinah there. As was true in the home of Avram and Sarah, they were always busy welcoming guests and fulfilling the mitzvah of Achnasas Orchim. There was always more than enough outstanding and delicious home-cooked food. I think the first time that I had deli roll was in their home, and always room for another chair at the table. People felt at home when there because they sensed the joy that comes with sensing the presence of Hashem. Auntie Ro's Hebrew name was Rachel Rivka. As Chazal tell us, we are reflections of our names, and she certainly lived up to both names. She looked well to the needs of her household all the days of her life. She had a wonderful marriage with Uncle Irv, and along with Judy's caring and assistance, she cared for him at home in the twilight of his life in spite of a terrible illness. Auntie Ro was the focal point of her home, which was a place of gathering for an extended family that includes children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. A place where boundless love was always shown, along with home-baked delicacies. As our matriarchs, she had the ability to have mastery over time and to unite the generations in a very meaningful way. In very meaningful ways. She always sent birthday cards to children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and their children. I always looked forward to getting my birthday card, and I will miss receiving the message of love and caring that went with it. This week's parsha is the parsha of Bo, where the Jewish people finally won their freedom from the Paro and Mitzrayim. Prior to their departure, the Jewish people received their first mitzvah of sanctifying the new moon, which signifies mastery over time. The moon waxes and wanes, and even when one believes the moon has disappeared, it emerges once again. This is a reflective of the Jewish people throughout the ages. When our enemies thought we were vanquished and gone, we emerged once again to shine brightly. They were also told to celebrate the Passover meal together as a united family with other families or others in need. Auntie Ro displayed this mastery over time of Kiddush HaChodesh. And the centrality of family is signified by the Yom Tov meal of Passover. I ask Mechila for her for any wrong which I may have done to her, and pray that she will be a good to better for the entire family. Her legacy of warmth, love, and caring will be enduring and an ongoing inspiration to all who knew and loved her. Tei Nishmasa Tzur B'Tzor HaChaim. There's a quick addendum, because again it's very close to what my father said. In the back and forth vis-a-vis the mock of Arab, of Locust, so Paro asked Moshe and Aaron who would go, and Moshe and Aaron said that they'll go. B'noreinu v'zkeneinu nelech, b'vaneinu v'vnoseinu b'tzonenu v'keinu nelech yichag Hashem lanu. And Paro couldn't understand this. Paro said, "No, l'chuna hagvarim v'ivdu es Hashem ki osatam avakshim v'garish Hashem yes pnei Paro." The Netziv points out that Paro used the word he didn't use the word anashim, he used the word gvarim, gibor, valorous, strong people. Paro only understood slaves vis-a-vis the concept of you could build Pison and Ramses, if you could build huge cities, that you want the strongest slaves. But Moshe told Paro the idea is, no, we need Binoreinu, we have to go with our youth. Auntie Ro obviously was a nursery teacher. She loved kids. She always had kids over. And Bizkenenu, she took care of, I'm not old enough, but I remember the way she took care of Grandma B, and certainly Uncle Irving. Right? Someone who's interested in building Pison and Ramses can't understand this, but someone like Auntie Ro who understands that people aren't just the amount of energy we have to expend on them, but they're human beings, right? We have to take first to celebrate. You have to focus on the kids and elderly, people who wouldn't necessarily be able to do it on their own. And then it says, Bivkorenu, then it says, Bivanenu v'nosenu, the centrality of family with our sons and daughters. It doesn't say with anashim and nashim, with men and women, sons and daughters. The family connection is symbolized by Auntie Ro and all the parties we had in the house. And then B'tzonenu v'ivkorenu, Auntie Ro was so generous. Obviously, she was generous towards everybody, But as Judy mentioned, obviously the amount of money it took to take care of Uncle Irving. If you understand the right, if you have the right attitudes about everything, like Auntie Ro did, you understand that you go out. You don't go out leading with the warriors. You go out Binoreinu Uviskenenu, with our youth and with our elderly. And Auntie Ro embodied this in all of her actions, and this is something that we could take with Binoreinu Uviskenenu, with our youth and with our elderly. This is, Auntie Ro helped everyone. She was nice to everyone. But this is the idea that Moshe told Paro. It's not the pyramids, and I think this is Auntie Ro's mother, Rachel Rivka, is buried not so far away on the gates, on the banks of the Des Plaines River. And Baruch Hashem, when the family came over 130 years ago, parts of the family, it wasn't clear what would happen. But 130 years later, approximately, we're burying her, and there's so many relatives, and it's still going in the path that her family went in when they came over. We should be zocha to continue. This is the very strong Masorah given over by Rachel Rivka, by Auntie Ro, and we should continue in this path. We ask her for mechila and again and Tehei Nishmas Tzur B'Tzur Chaim. At this time, we will start the burial process. After which we'll say the Kilmale.
At this point, we'll recite the Tziddik Hadin, accepting God's judgment. Hatzor Tamim Palok Yichol Dercha Mishpat Elam Navi and Avel Tzadik V'Yasher Hu. Hatzor Tamim B'Chol Pa'al Mi Omar Ma Tifal Hashalit B'Mato Ma'al Memisum Chaya Morid Sha'al Vayal. Hatzor Tamim B'Chol Ma'aseh Mi Omar Elav Ma Taseh Ha'omer V'Oseh Chesed Chinam Lanu Taseh V'Shus Hanecha Keseh Hakshiva V'Aseh. Tzadik B'Chol Derchav Hatzor Tamim Erech Apayim Amalei Rachamim Chamol Na V'Chusna Al Avos Uvanim Ki L'cha Adon Hasichos V'Harachamim Tzadik At V'Adonai L'Hamisul Hachayos Asher B'Yadcha Pikdon Kol Ruchos Chalila L'cha Zichronenu Limchos V'Ina Inenu B'Rachamim Aleinu Pekuchos Ki L'cha Adon Harachamim V'Haslichos Adam Iben Shana Yeh O Elef Shanim Yichyeh Ma Yisron Lo Kolo Haya Yeh Baruch Dayan HaEmes Memisum Chayeh Baruch Hu Ki Emes Dino Umshotet HaKol Be'ino Umshalem La'adam Cheshbono V'Dino V'Kol Yishmo Hodaya Yitenu Yadanu Adonai Ki Tzedek Mishpatecha Titzat Bidvarecha V'Zizka B'Shavtecha Ve'ein Laharher Achar Midas Shavtecha Tzedikat Adonai V'Yashar Mishpatecha Dayan Emes Shofet Tzedek Ve'emes Baruch Dayan HaEmes Shekol Mishpatav Tzedek Ve'emes Nefesh Kol Chai B'Yadecha Tzedek Mal'a Yemincha V'Yadcha Rachim Aplei Tatzon Yadecha V'Somar L'Malach Heref Yadecha Gedal ha'etzev Rav Aliliyah Asher Einecha Pekuchos Akol Darchei B'nei Adam L'Seis L'Ish Ki Drachav V'Chichri Ma'alolav L'Hagid Ki Asher Adonai Tzadik V'Lo Av L'Sabo Adonai Nasan V'Adonai Lakach Yihi Shem Adonai Bevarach V'Hu Rachum Yichaper Avon V'Le'ashchis Yerbala Shivapo V'Le'er Kol Chamaso.
this time, anyone who wants to assist in the Chesed Shalemas of the bearing of Anti-Ro, the Minhag's Besides for Children, could come forth and do so at this time.
El Malay Rachamim Shechein Bamaroimim Amsei Menucha Nechoina Al Kanfei Ashchina B'Ma'alois Kedoshim V'Tayrim Kezayar Harakia Mazirim Es Nishmas V'Isha Rachel Rivka Bas Eliodoi V'Koyin Shalach Shehalcha Lo'ilamo Bavur Shemishmachto Nodvol Tzedakah B'Haras Koras Nishmasa V'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasa L'chein Bal Rachamim Yastiraha B'Seiser K'nafav Lo'ilamim V'Yitzar B'Tzar HaChaimis Nishmasa Adonai Hu Nachlasa V'Sanuach B'Shalem Al Mishkavo V'Neimar Amen.
Amen. Again, we ask your Mechila, Mizmar LeDavid, Adonai Ro'ilo Achsar B'No Steshi Arbiteni Am Imnochos Yimaleini. Nafshi Shovi Yavchen B'Maglei Tzedek L'Ma'an Shemo. Gam Ki Elach B'Gei Tal Mavis Lo Yirara Ki Ata Yimadi Shivtecha Mishantecha Hemi Yenachamuni. Ta'aroch L'Fanai Shulchan Neged Sorai Dishanta B'Shemen Roshi Kosir Vaya Achtov V'Chesed Yerdefunu Koyemei Chayai V'Shafti B'Veis Adonai L'Yarach Yamim. And we'll make the special Kaddish.
Vizkadesh Merabah, Yomotuhu Asi Liskata, Lachayom Messiah, Lasaka, Lachai Oma, Lifte Karta, Yerushalayim, Lachlel, Echale, Begava, Lemekar, Puchana, Nichra, Meara, Lasava, Puchana, Dishmai Lasra, Yamniku Shabrichu, Machze Vikare, Bechaychon, of Yamechon, and Bechaydaho Base Israel, Dagalav is Mankarid, Vimrame, Yisfarach, Yishabach, Yisfarach, Yismam, Yisnasei, Yisadar, Yisalev, Yisalal, Shmei, Kuchabrichu, Le'elam, Mikal, Berchasav, Shirasa, Tushbachasav, Nechamasa, Damiram, Biomavim, Rame, Yehi Shlam, Ravam, Min Shemaya, B'chayim Aleinu, V'chal Yisrael, V'rame, Yiseh Shalom, B'yomarav, Yiseh Shalom Aleinu, V'chal Yisrael, V'rame.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the service. At this time, we're going to form a shirah, a double aisleway here on the road. The immediate mourners will walk through, and it's at that time we may offer the words of consolation. For those of you who are online that just joined us, the family appreciates that. We hope everybody has a restful and peaceful Shabbat.